Climate change. People are calling it the crisis of our time, and it is.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
But isn't climate always changing? What exactly is climate change, and why should we care? Earth's climate has changed throughout the history. Most of the slight changes are caused by small variation in the Earth's atmosphere. But climate change as we know it today is caused by an abrupt increase in the Earth's temperature. It is estimated to have gotten more than 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer since the late 19th century. Well, that doesn't sound so scary. I mean, 1.2 degrees Celsius, come on.
Holy shit. Whoa. Oh my god. Did you see that?
In last decade, we have gotten 3 hottest year on recorded history for the planet. You might think this could be caused by Earth's orbit, but 97% of climate scientists agree that this new tendency is not caused by Earth's orbit, but rather very likely caused by human activities. Look at this graph. These are the level of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere over hundreds of thousands of years. But this last spike in carbon dioxide at the very end, that took off during the Industrial Revolution. Since the Industrial Revolution, humans have released over 1.5 trillion tons of carbon dioxide into the Earth's atmosphere. We started breaking carbon dioxide records in 1950 and we haven't stopped since. We have been burning more fossil fuels like oil and coal, which release carbon dioxide to power our house, factories and cars. The global population has tripled in the past 70 years and we are consuming more products from animals that release another pollutant called methane. So all these gases are in the air, and when sunlight gets into the Earth's atmosphere, some of the heat gets trapped and the planet gets warmer. That's why they call it the greenhouse effect. The UN says if we warm by 1.5 degree before the end of the century, we should be fine. The UN says even 2 degree would probably be alright. But again, the problem is speed, because right now we are on track to hit 1.5 degree in only 10 years. And if we don't slow that warming down, it could mean catastrophe within our lifetime, and we are already getting a taste. One of the biggest victims of climate change is our ocean. Oceans regulate through Earth's temperature and provide 50% of the Earth's oxygen. Climate change increases the temperature of oxygen by 0.3 degree Fahrenheit. Although warm oceans might seem inviting to a beachgoer, it actually has a devastating consequences for supporting life at oceans. Oceans dissolve carbon dioxide. As CO2 increases into atmosphere, oceans dissolve more and more CO2. Because of this, ocean surface acidification is increased by 30%. A higher acid content means calcifying species like oyster and shellwater coral are at risk, putting the entire ocean food chain into risk. This is very bad news for the more than billion people relying on ocean as its primary source of protein. Climate changes also cause the sea level to rise. Melting ice sheets and glaciers also add trillions of tons of fresh water into our oceans. This causes major problem for coastal people. And if things carry on, entire coastal cities could be underwater within 80 years. We have known for decades that rapid climate change has been caused by the release of greenhouse gases. But instead of reducing them, in 2019 the world is emitting 50% more CO2 than in year 2000. The COVID-19 pandemic resulted in the largest ever decline in global emission as primary energy demand dropped nearly 4% in 2020. Global energy related CO2 emission fell by 5.8% according to the latest statistical data, the largest annual percentage decline since World War II. But they need to get down to zero. Natural disasters are becoming more and more intense, more frequent with devastating consequences. The dramatic impact of droughts in different parts of the world, all of this is creating a situation that is a real threat to humankind, and we are not doing enough. Now there is a plan to slow all this down. Back in 2016, world leaders signed the Paris Agreement. And the big pledge is to keep temperatures rising by 1.5 degree or a maximum of 2 degree before the year 2100. So all countries set their own target on how much CO2 they emit. In pandemic, we didn't have any choice, so we stayed at home. Global CO2 emissions reduced, but now all countries giving good fight to COVID. So again, we are back on track. It started to increase again, and it doesn't look good. Now look at this chart. China alone is responsible for 28% of global emission of CO2. It followed by USA 15%, India 7% and Russia 5%. Together these four countries are responsible for 55% of CO2 emission. So it's clear that without willingness and action of these four industrial blocks, humanity will not be able to become carbon neutral and prevent severe climate change. But if we only look at the current situation, we are not getting the full picture. If we look at emissions throughout history and day to day, the outlook changes drastically. The US and EU both knock China off the top spot. The US is responsible for 25% of the world's historical emissions, emitting 400 billion tons of carbon dioxide, mostly in the 20th century. In second place is EU at 22%. China comes in third at just 13% and India's contribution shrinks to 3%. Germany, producing 2% of emission per year today, has contributed almost 6%. The point is, blaming few countries for climate change is not a good idea. Every country wants to be in list of developed country. For that they need more energy. More energy means more carbon dioxide. And whenever politics involved, we get more problems. On the other hand, there is more awareness.
Over their shoulders as they left their classrooms behind and spilled onto city streets, demanding action on climate change.
I had an exam today and I've come all the way from Noida to join this protest because I feel this issue is very pressing and we need to take action.
And some countries are making progress. India, Morocco and the Gambia have the massive renewable energy project. Countries like Sweden, Costa Rica and Scotland are shifting to renewable energy. Some countries are making all public transport free. What a great way to encourage people out of their cars. But we need to take bigger jumps. To change everything about the way we run our world. To make bigger impact, we have to change the system that has allowed it to happen. And honestly, there is not much we can do on bigger level. But on personal level, there are few things we can do, like reducing the use of car, use public transport more, cycle more, turn off electronics when you are not using them, and spread more awareness. This doesn't sound much of a work, because there is only so much bike riding you and I can do every day. But changing these small habits can make a huge impact at the end. The main takeaway is that it's real, and although we are part of the cause, we can also be part of the solution. Peace.